Today I'm joined by no other than the legendary concept artist himself, Col Price. Now, if there's a resume to be envious of, it's this. Cole has worked on films and TV shows such as Alien Romulus, Dune Part 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Neuromancer, Sonic 4, The Meg 2, Matrix 4, Mortal Kombat, Secret Level, Masters of the Air, and that's just to name a few. And the topic we'll be discussing today is the importance of personal work, as Cole is one of the few people I know that is actively and consistently producing his own work no matter what he has going on in his life and how busy he is. So Cole, welcome and thanks for joining me for a chat.
Cheers, mate. Good to see you.
Likewise. So, as we know, these are very specific conversations. So, off the cusp, I'm going to ask you, what is the last piece of personal work you produced and when was it?
It's probably the other day. In fact, I've actually got one going at the moment.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. It's that unstoppable train. Yeah.
Yes.
It is. It's. I don't even know really how to describe it actually. So I did one. Probably was the other day, and I'd split it up into a number of different ideas, and I've literally started one on Friday, I think it was. But I mean, usually it's like try and get one. Works out around about one a day, but usually
Wow.
I split it. I'll split it between a couple of days because obviously if you're working as well, you don't really get too much time. But I always find that it's good as almost like as a wind down after work. You just go in on that and switch off a little bit and do that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's what I wanted to ask you is the why? Because like a lot of people I speak to as well, like once they're done with work, if they're busy, like the last thing they want to do is create art or design work. So what do you think it is that makes you want to create, even if you are super busy and you're on a paid job?
I think that's a really good question, and I think for me personally, the answer is when I'm creating, I'll get sparks and ideas, and I don't want to lose them. So I'll often do stuff after work or at lunchtime just to start getting ideas down and go, oh, actually, that would be really cool to do. Or even if there's something that, maybe the production designer's gone, no, we're not going to go down that route. And I'll go, I actually really like that. If I did something like that and put that into my sort of slant. So there's always that snowball effect, I think, anyway. And I'm sure as well, you're probably the same because I know you've started doing your sketching. Are you finding now the more you sketch, the more you want to do?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the thing. So recently I've gone through a lot of frustrations like with personal work. And tell me, well, actually, I don't think you're the same. I put all this pressure on myself when I'm creating a personal work, but all I want to do is create just for the sake of creating. And by the sounds of thing, it's the same as you. Like you're creating almost for like that inexplainable thing or that inexplainable urge within yourself to produce something. It's how we're wired, and that's how I am too. But almost then when I sit down to do personal work, the scope is too big that I freeze up, and I've found that maybe in recent times what I needed to do is actually just step away from the computer and maybe actually just do things by hand and sketch as a way of trying to get my own personal work out so I can kind of scratch that itch. But yeah, back to you, like am I correct in saying that? Is it that purest urge within yourself to create something that makes you want
Yeah,
to do
I
this?
I think one of the most important things is that I absolutely love it, and I've always loved it since a kid. I love creating worlds. I love creating, images and telling stories. That's another reason why I like to do it. It's the telling the story aspect in it in an image. I just think for me it just seems to be a bit of a release, and it has such a multitude of benefits. Because obviously when I, you know what, I have a rule, I have a mantra. and I always say this, is when you're not working, you're working. And you'll probably hear me saying this a few times during this conversation because it's true as an artist, I believe anyway. When you're not physically working, you need to be working, especially in this day and age. You need to be seen on social media, which is the devil incarnate itself. You know, if you're not on social media, you're forgotten within, 2 weeks. You need to keep up with, not so much with trends, but you need to keep up, I think, with keeping the old grey matter going. You know, work's different. Work, when you're in work and you're on a production, you know what it's like. Sometimes you can't even think straight because there's that much stuff being fired at you. And I think sometimes to get that release of going back to actually having the joy of doing the artwork again, which I'm sure, like I said before, I'm sure you're finding because I'm seeing your sketches and I'm seeing this progression already in your sketch work. I just think it's absolutely invaluable that we, as artists, embrace that, and you get used to doing it. I think you'll find as well. You may say to yourself, "Oh, I'm getting frustrated because I want to do things, and maybe these things are too big for me." But I get that all the time, and I just sideline them, and then maybe I'll come back to them in a few months and go, "You know what? Now I know what I can do," or it will make you think about taking it on a different slant. So again, it's making you think all the time. It's making you think about how to construct stuff. It's making you think about how to tell stories different, how to place cameras different. And all that has a benefit for when we actually go and do a job for real. Because then you've got this complete arsenal built up. You've got all these tools. And that, again, helps your productivity. Because then your speed increases, which we all know is like, we always get it where we're working and they want stuff done yesterday, or you've got to hit a certain schedule, a certain milestone, and so by doing stuff like that, it just becomes it's like exercise for the brain. That's one of the easiest ways I can say it. But I do think it's really important. Like I said, there's so many different facets to the benefits to it.
What you have just said, like there is so much gold in there from people that listen to this to extract from. Like, first of all, it's so inspiring to hear someone with a career like yours still just loves doing what they do. And no matter what's going on in your life, like you continue to do that. Like you're satisfying that childlike urge to create. So like I commend you for that because that's super inspiring to hear. And then second of all, you just hit the nail on the head about exercise, because it's like literally can translate to exercise in real life. It's like, I love thinking of the analogy with the gym. It's like you're not going to get stronger and you're not going to become physically look better if you aren't doing repetition. So it's exactly the same thing with art and design. Like the more you do it and the more you practice through failure, through success, like your work can only get better. And also what you said, the perfect thing is that visual library that you build within your brain of your own designs, and you all of a sudden build this arsenal of details and shapes and compositions that you then almost have like ammunition for your professional work. So it just really goes hand in hand. And I guess, I wanted to just maybe get you to elaborate on that. Like, how have you found your input for personal work to affect your professional work, like other than speed? Is it things like that? Like you've built up a lot of like these cool shapes that you've explored that you find opportunities to use?
Definitely. I mean, you end up having your own. I mean, there's always this thing about, sort of getting your own style. And I think that's a way of doing that as well, because you, again, like you were saying before, you build up this arsenal of your own shapes, of your own sort of design ethos. And again, you just have, I mean, because I do so much personal work, I have libraries and libraries and libraries of photographs, of images, of reference material, of stuff that I've painted up that I can use for effects. And literally it just means that when I come to do a production, It's like, right, my brain kicks in and it goes into that library and it's like, right, what have we got that we can use on this? And it's like, bish, 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 done. And that's why people say, oh my God, you're so fast. But I don't think it's that. I just think it's preparation. I think it's having that complete library of tools that you build up over. I mean, I've built this stuff up over, decades. But even if you just sit down and start doing it yourself and start building up this whole library of stuff, and whether it's like a library of 3D stuff, whether it's a library of character sketches that you've done, and just getting used to doing stuff and that discipline. I think that's another really important thing, is discipline of making sure that you sit down and do this stuff. It's very easy for us to, we do a job and then we go, right, that's it. I'm off for 3 months and I won't do anything. And then you find that you come back to a next job and you'll be stagnant. You'll be like, you'll be sitting there thinking, right, what am I going to do? Whereas I like to be prepared. So if I'm constantly doing stuff, and a director or a PD comes in and throws stuff at me, yeah, you'll get the rabbit in the headlights moment at first and think, oh my God, I've just had this on Sonic, where I was given a couple of tasks and they were my absolute nemesis in art. They were the two things that I absolutely I'm like, oh my God, how the hell am I going to do that? But because I've got all these tools built up and this sort of arsenal and this library and everything, it means that, all right, you have like a couple of hours panic and then your brain switches in and goes, right, how are we going to approach this? Well, actually, you did something similar, with this, and what about these shapes you've got? And you put it all together and you present it, and bingo, it's like, right, okay, I'm on the way. I'm solving this straight away, which is what we do anyway. We solve problems. So you're solving your own problems by solving their problems,
That's brilliant. Like the preparation is so important, and also like what you said, making sure you stay active, like doing those reps, because the last thing you want to do is become rusty. And I've been caught out like that. Like I've finished a job and I'm cool, step away from it for months, and then you get another job. They always come out of the blue, as you know, and you have to start tomorrow, and all of a sudden you can really start to doubt yourself, and you can almost forget how you work, and you second guess anything. Like the amount of times like it's happened to me once, and I was almost been caught out on a job because I hadn't been doing any personal work. I got a little bit rusty, and I was almost like over detailing things too early. And because I just lost touch a little bit with my process. But like you said, that's why it's important to keep everything loose and going, so you can just flow right into another job. Do you find though that speaking of process, do you find that your process from your personal work to professional work differs much at all, or is it pretty similar?
It's pretty similar. It depends. You know what? It depends what the PD or the director wants. Sometimes you're given free rein. Sometimes they want you just to completely bash it out. Sometimes they want you to do really loose stuff. So I mean, it really does depend. It's a tough one to say that. I just think that it's really, really important that we, how can I put this? That we you've got to just keep going all the time. I mean, that's what it's like for me anyway, is that you've just got to keep that machine rolling along, and hopefully, anything that they throw at you, whether for example they want loose stuff, then you're prepared to be able to do that. Because there was times in the past where they'd say to me, "Oh, we need just keep it loose," and I'm terrible. I can't, because I'm like, I just want to get it done. Sometimes there's that frustration of me. I just want to get it done, and because it's very difficult when you're on a project to gauge whether someone can actually see the work. We've all had directors where, it's like, we'll know what we want when we see it. And I always think, well, if I give them the full Monty, then they've got nowhere to turn. They can then start stripping it back themselves and saying, yeah, we don't like this bit, but we like that bit, rather than the frustrations of giving them loose sketches and them not being able to see what my loose sketches are, because sometimes loose can be extremely loose. So it is. It's
No, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
no, no. I was just going to say. So it's difficult to gauge. You know.
Yeah, definitely. Like each client, each director, each production designer is different, and it's kind of a little bit of a scary one. Like when we've been there on the same job, when director says, I just want sketches, and
Yeah.
like that can just end up really bad, because what's their idea of a sketch anyway? Like
Yeah.
your idea of a sketch and loose is going to be completely different to what
Yeah.
they think, and it's like it's hard. You got to feel them out, but that's why it's like you've always just kind of put your best foot forward. Like it doesn't mean you necessarily have to overly resolve something, but you still want to show them something that you're proud of, and that's probably the easiest
And
way.
I think as well, it's difficult at the moment when they come to you and they'll say, "Keep it loose. Here's some reference," and it's fully realized stuff in AI, and you're like, "Right, okay." So, is that your idea of loose?
Yeah,
Just like and it's a
AI's
minefield.
finished, AI's polished. Yeah, I know, right? They're
Yeah,
like, here's some AI sketches. That doesn't make any
yeah,
sense whatsoever. And actually, I was just thinking, going back to what you were saying earlier about practice, and just keeping that repetition going so that you're well prepared for a job. Something I notice you do as well, which I think is super interesting, is if I step back and I think of Col Price, like I think of sci-fi, epic, vastness, huge scale, like iconic looking stuff. But you also dabble in different themes and different genres and different topics. Like you'll do horror, you'll do period pieces for yourself. Yeah, do you want to talk us through why you do that? Because I think that's
yeah.
super important and it's really
Because it
interesting.
is, yeah, it is super super important to branch out and make sure you can do that stuff. It's almost like it's a personal challenge sometimes as well. You think to yourself, well, I haven't done that. I'd really like to do that. And there's so many genres to go through. And I think as well, that sort of started happening when I was working at DNEG, because when I was on freelancing for DNEG, I was getting thrown into that many different genres. Literally within a week, I could be on, an Indian sort of epic, or then I would be on something from World War II, or then I'd be back to doing, modern day scenarios, and then sci-fi. And so again, it's that preparation, it's that forcing yourself to go out your comfort zone, which I think is incredibly important. There's still certain things that I find difficult to do, but I'll keep challenging myself to do that, because again, it makes you more rounded as an artist. It makes you more, you get to think outside the box, and also those ideas that you do for those, say for example, different genres, you can bring that in and mix that with stuff that you're more comfortable with. Whether it's sci-fi, mixing it with, say, fantasy stuff. I mean, I love doing fantasy stuff. I started off as a kid just painting castles and dragons and barbarians and stuff like that, and it was stuff that I hadn't really delved into in the last 10 years. And then I'm like, well, why haven't I need to get back into doing that. And it's the same with horror. I used to do creatures all the time. It's very very rare that I do creatures now, because I don't think I'm good enough at doing creatures to put it out. But I'll have a go, and see if I can challenge myself and push myself in that direction.
That's brilliant, because like again, more gold, especially for like the younger concept artists listening to this and the students that are aspiring to make a career out of this, because you can build your portfolio. This is just my loose opinion, but you can build your portfolio on a theme, like I have with architecture, and that's what got me hired. You know what I mean? Someone comes into my art station, they see architecture, brutalism, sci-fi architecture. We love what Nick does. We want him for architecture for our film.
Yeah.
But then what people don't see is that once you're in on a job, you may get asked to do all these other tasks, or you may also be with those same people on future films that are completely different genres. So you want to build up your skills in all these different themes so that you can tackle all of these tasks. Doesn't necessarily mean even that maybe, you want to be working in sci-fi, you want your folio to look sci-fi, but like yourself, dabble in the other themes, practice. You don't necessarily have to show them, because when
Yeah.
you're on a job, those skills are going to become super useful.
Yeah.
And to give like one of my own examples, at the end of last year, I it had been like a month, no films that had been coming in, and then a film popped up, and I was like, "Oh, what is the theme?" It's World War II, Vietnam. I was like, "What the hell?" I was freaking out. I was like, "I have to take this job. That's not my style at all." And I was freaking out, and I was sweating. I'm like, "How am I going to do this?" But when I got onto the job, like I could calm my nerves because I could look at past sketches or past photo bashes and other things that I'd done on jobs that I haven't even shared. I'm like, wait a second, I can do this. I've used these skills before. I've used these
Yeah.
tools. All you need to have is the tools, have done something similar in the past, and you'll be fine. But I guess to summarize all of that, yeah, the importance of practice in different themes like yourself is really going to make you more valuable on jobs, because once you work with someone and you click with them, they're just going to bring you onto all of their other jobs in the future, and you kind of become set.
Yeah. And I think as well, it doesn't even need to be, I've got this built up for jobs. It's like, I've got this built up and I can tackle anything. I can push myself in a certain direction. I know I'm going to be able to do that. And by pushing yourself in that direction, you may find that, again, if we go back to, the more you do, the more you want to create. I mean, I get that all the time. That's one of the biggest things that I have is the more that I create, the more I want to create. And my worst time is when I'm on a job, because when I'm on a job and I'm fully invested and I'm thinking about different things and I'm trying to create and I'm trying to design, and all those ideas stack up. And so you've got to have some sort of release, which is why I tend to do them after work, because there's that much stuff that comes into your head. It's just conditioning yourself, and you think, right, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to try that. I'm going to push myself in that direction. So again, I just think it makes us more rounded as artists and more comfortable, because there's nothing worse than going into a job and basically sitting there and going, oh my God, what the hell am I going to do? I mean, that's not to say that that's not a bad thing, because they're the types of jobs that push you,
Yeah.
which I always think is good. I'll always take a job on and I think, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to tackle this?
Yeah, I think the fear is a good thing. Like I've found that personally on jobs, like again, I've tackled themes on jobs that I never would have probably done in my own time, but I found that that's when I've learnt the most. Like Love, Death and Robots for me, like it was 17th century England, and doing period work, and also doing it in a more cartoonish style. And at the start, I was like freaking out. I was like, how am I going to do this? But, backing yourself and thinking ahead, that you're going to grow so much from that
Yeah,
experience. And yeah, I think that's the only, one of the only ways too to really grow is to constantly challenge yourself, like you're saying, and dabble in different themes and in different jobs that you think that maybe you wouldn't have thought of in the first place. And I
and I
guess
think
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I think the other thing is just learn to love it.
Yeah.
We all started off in these, or we want to get into these careers because we love doing this stuff. It's very, very easy to fall out of love and it to become just a job. So being able to just relax and just do it and just create and get back in love with doing stuff. And if you've got a job, that's the job, and it's all to and fro. It all knocks back onto everything else.
I love hearing that because it was something that I was talking about in my Learn Squared course too. And it was just like, I was saying to students that ask yourself, if the industry evaporated tomorrow, would you still create art? Would you still design? Because if the answer is no, then you shouldn't be even
Yeah,
trying to get into this, because you just have to have that inexplainable urge and itch to create. Like, you have to love it that much, because there's always going to be somebody else out there that is itching to make this their career. Like, they love creating so much and they don't stop creating, that they do anything. They give an arm and a leg to just be able to get paid to do this.
yeah, yeah.
Speaking of getting jobs, is there anything off the top of your head, or can you think of any specific personal piece? And I guess it would be hard for you because you create so many of them. That you can think of anything that would stand out that got you an interesting or cool job from a specific work that you created just for yourself?
Um, no, not so much a specific piece, but I've had people get in touch because they like the sort of the grittiness and sort of the realistic sort of grittiness of stuff that they like, which, to be honest, I never see. I never see. So, I always think that's a bit weird when they say that. Oh, we like your style because it's like really sort of realistically gritty and not so much downbeat, but yeah, but not so much pieces. I don't think so anyway.
So more just like the theme of your work and the portfolio that you've built as a whole is what
Yeah,
generally gets
yeah.
you.
I've had a few directors that have got in touch and they're like, really love your work and so forth, and that's always nice to hear. Um, so yeah, that's nice. And you talk to them and they're like, yeah, it's like the way you kind of put stuff together is really nice, and so that's kind of nice. It doesn't tend to be one particular piece.
Do you, I guess, like if we think the last couple of years, 2, 3 years, do you find that you are still getting people that you haven't worked with before reaching out to you because they've come across your work?
Um,
Like out of the blue?
yeah.
Like, or is it more, would you say, to do with networking and relationships these days? Or do
No,
you
no,
still
no.
get
It's
jobs out of your
always
work?
Yeah. It's always been that way. It's always been people reaching out and saying, are you free? What's your availability, sort of thing. Which I always find I've been incredibly lucky that I often hear stories of people like, where they've had to go, round knocking on doors, sort of thing, and so forth. And it's only in the last couple of years, I think, because of the way the industry has gone, is I've had to start sort of doing that myself. But previous to that, it was literally people just, are you free? Can you work on this? Can you work on that? And so that's always been really nice.
And do you think that you would, I know it'd be hard to say, but would you put that down to that work ethic that you have because you're constantly creating and you're constantly putting your stuff out there?
Without doubt, without doubt. I mean, I used to kick stuff out all the time, and it would get posted up on Twitter, and that's where most of my jobs first came through. Was talking to people and talking to directors because they'd like my work, and talking to production designers and various other people in the industry, and it was literally because I was kicking stuff out almost on a daily basis. And I think that stood me in a real good place, to be honest. And I think that wasn't because I wanted to be noticed. It was just because that I loved it. Loved doing it, because all that stuff was personal work. It's very rare that I put out professional work, because like we can be working on stuff 2-3 years ago, and it's just coming out now. It's like when we did Per Aspera ad Astra. I mean, that was back in 23, I think
23,
that
yeah.
was. Yeah, yeah. And it's literally just come out last week. and it's like I mean, we haven't been even been able to give them the green light to actually show anything yet. So it's like, will it be like another 6 months, 9 months before we can do that? And it's crazy. So you have to keep that momentum going, I feel, which is very difficult. It's so competitive today on social media and ArtStation, and it can be quite overwhelming, I think, for people starting off. And I get asked, all the time, how do they manage to do that? And I just say to them, just keep going. Don't worry about what anyone else is saying. It's like people that talk about portfolio reviews and stuff like that. I never bother with stuff like that, because you'll know yourself if your work's good enough. I don't know anyone that puts stuff out and goes, "That's amazing. I'm absolutely amazing." And if they do, then there's a real big problem there,
Yeah.
But it's but you just got to keep going. Just got to keep running down that road.
It's so inspiring, like, to hear you say that, because like I'm the same. Like, I get so many messages from people like, how do I get work? How do I get a job? This and that. But it's like, are you like, I'm guilty as well. Like, I don't create much personal work, but I'm privileged enough at the moment to kind of always be busy. But for the people that aren't, and I know like luck plays a part of the factor, but you can also increase your chances of luck
Yeah,
by non-stop creating and putting yourself out there. Like, you just
yeah,
have to, across LinkedIn, your Twitter, Instagram. Like, who gives a crap what anybody thinks? Like,
yeah.
you create for the sake of creating, because you should be loving to create, and you just keep putting it up there, out there. You keep showing up every day, and eventually someone will notice your work. Like, the right timing will happen. But if you just stop and you just wait for someone to come and knock on your door, and you don't have a job and you're doing one personal piece a year. Like, what's the odds of, somebody finding that one piece of work you did over 12 months and reaching
Yeah,
out to you for any opportunity? Like you said
yeah,
before,
yeah.
social media is this game that we all have to play, unfortunately. And if you disappear, you disappear. Um,
It is. It's an absolute beast to. I mean, in some respects, it's amazing. It's fantastic because it's a platform that we get to use. That I know it was never that big when I started out. I mean, literally, when I started out back in the '90s in games, none of this stuff existed at all, which is just wild to see how it's come along. I think now it's become another beast where it's almost too much. There's so much stuff to get out. You've got Blue Sky, you've got Twitter, you've got Instagram, you've got LinkedIn, you've got ArtStation, and it always amazes me when I talk to people and I talk to artists, and this has happened. Even when I've been down at 101, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm not on Instagram or I'm not on ArtStation," and it's like, what are you doing? You need to get yourself out there and be seen. It's not for you to. It's not about being judged. It's just about being seen, and get in the community, and get to know people and talk to people and ask questions. We don't. I get emails all the time, and I try and get back to people as much as possible. We're not ogres. We've all been there. So if I can give someone a bit of support, then yeah, that's great. But it's like when you see people, and I go on ArtStation. I'm gonna burn in hell for this. I go on ArtStation, right? I go on ArtStation and I see this work that's been done that's just beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And I'm scrolling through all these images, and then you'll see, like, yeah, I've been working on this for the last 3 months. I've been working on this for the last 12 weeks. I've been working on this for the last, and I'm thinking, you need to be getting that out in a couple of days. because you're just going to get eaten alive. And I really don't think people realize, whilst we have personal work, you've got to put yourself under the gun of it's personal work, but what if this was on a professional gig? How much time would I have to do this? Give yourself that framework and say, right, okay, I've got 2 days to do this. What am I going to be able to get done in 2 days? And what's the standard?
Yeah.
And use that as a framework. And I would say to anyone to use that as a template, and then say, you know what, you can have your personal work, you can carry that on, but make sure you start doing that discipline of saying, what am I going to get done in a couple of days? Because that's what's going to get you employed. That's what people are going to turn around and go, we'd like you to come back on, on the next show. I think that's incredibly important, that discipline.
That's that. Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. Like, there's nothing wrong with somebody wanting to work on something depending on what it is for 3 months, but it's like you gotta ask yourself, what is that for? Like,
Yeah.
if you're trying to get work and you're trying to be seen, you need to give yourself those self-imposed deadlines. And I'm not perfect. I stuff up all the time. Most recently, like, I realized I was working on a personal work and fiddling around with it. And it's just like, man, it's been like a month. Like, what am I doing? I had to scrap it. I was like, I got to move on. I got to go back to, look, I'm going to start. I've got a few days off. I'm like, 2 days. Exactly what you said. 2 days. It doesn't have to be finished, but pretend I'm on a job. I've got to present this
Yeah.
to a production designer in 2 days. What am I going to get done? And it's just going to be some black and white sketches, resolve the space as much as I can within that time limit, and it's done. You have
Yeah.
to have that discipline, and it's just good practice, because then it's just going to be muscle memory when you're on a job. Like, you also then start to find your own process as well of what's achievable to do within that time limit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, it's really important to do that. I mean, I fall into that trap. I'll fall into the trap where I'm starting something. I mean, generally I have 3 or 4 different images at once going. Literally, I have a folder that's called New Ideas, and I'll go in that folder, and there'll be like 4 or 5 half completed Photoshop images with half completed 3D models in. And it becomes almost like a production line then, where sometimes I'll get a spark and I'll go, right, I know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to do that. But if I go over like 4 days, I start getting really frustrated. I get really frustrated. And the thing I've started doing lately is I've been trying to expand stuff out a little bit to try and show people, sort of what I do. Not so much the process, because God forbid anyone sees my process. It's horrendous. But just to show people that, from one, say for example, one vehicle or whatever, you can get multiple ideas from it, and I'll show them, sort of there's almost like the sketch of it or the 3D sketch of it, and I'll try and put stuff in different scenarios. But even then, I'll try and kick stuff out within the 2 days, because anything after that, I'm terrible. I start to get bored, which is another factor why I kick stuff out so much, is that I get bored really, really quick, because I'm constantly wanting to learn. That's the easiest thing, I think that's another really important aspect of everything, is to learn. I mean, I'm constantly learning stuff about the software that I'm using, and trying different things as well. That again is super, super important, because again, it all runs back to, you've got this arsenal that's built up, and you've got this huge set of armor that you go into a project and you can call back and go, right, I remember I did something like that a year ago or 2 years ago, or do you remember that piece I did? I kind of like that style. I kind of like what I did with the sunlight. I'll use that in this shot. So again, I think everything just becomes this one mass, creative mass.
And it's so important to do that and to build up that arsenal because like you said, at the end of the day somebody's just going to hire you as well for you. So whenever you're stuck, like the best thing you can do is just reference your own work and reference your own
Yeah,
shapes. Um,
definitely.
and like it showed, like I got a perfect example for you was I never even thought this. Like again, I thought Cole, epic sci-fi landscapes, vehicles, amazing cinematic scenes. And then on Alien, what happens? The director's like, all right, I want everybody to have a go at creating an offspring. And you just whipped one out and he loved it. Like Fede loved like what you had done. I was like, when did Cole know how to sculpt creatures? I was like, where did this come from? And you did it in like a day. And I was like, what the hell? I remember messaging you straight after. I was like, what did you use how did you do that? And
Yeah.
then you were telling me. I was just like blown away. And that is a perfect example of how, again, you can really become valuable on a project because you had that in your arsenal. And it went down well with who you're working for, and that's like the best thing you can do. At the end of the day, when we're on a project, we've got to try and make good first impressions, and that was earlier in the job too, and it works.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, it's just it's trying new stuff. I think we've all got to try new stuff. I mean, God knows how many times I've said I need to learn Blender because I do. I do need to learn it. And I want to learn. I did want to learn ZBrush, but it's just I'm too stupid. It's just like I'll stick with Nomad Sculpt, and I can sort of handle that and fudge it in Photoshop. But again, it's just that branching out and having the ability and the willingness to do that and try different stuff. And don't be scared of it. I mean, it's all fun. It's all creative.
Yeah.
The only person that's going to see it is you until you actually put it out.
Yes.
And it's just like, just have a bit of fun. It's
Yeah.
just, it's nice to do.
Yeah. We take everything a little bit too seriously sometimes, don't we? Like I think,
Definitely.
yeah, the best thing, what
Definitely.
I've just loved from this chat so far too, is just hearing that you're almost doing it in the reverse. Like we'll get maybe sucked in a little bit too much, and I'm guilty of it as well as always thinking about the job side of it. But hang on a second, take a step back. We did this because we just loved creating art, and it's like you got to just go back to that mindset, and everything else follows after that, and you'll be in a good position. Um, I wanted to ask you too. So you gave us a little bit of a glimpse, like you said, you had like a folder with like half done 3Ds. Like, yeah, what is your go-to? Like, you have an idea. Like, do you sketch something down when it comes into your mind, or do you jump into 3D and quickly block something out, or does it just constantly change across depending on what it is that you're trying to create?
Yeah, it changes. It changes all the time. Sometimes it can be photographs. I'll see photographs, or I've taken photographs, which is another thing that I think is incredibly important to do. Is learn to take photographs. It will stand you in so much stead. I mean, we can talk about that a little bit later on, but so it could be something like that. It could be something that it could be something as simple as a sky that I've seen, and I've gone, you know what, that would look really cool if I did this and I've done that. Sometimes it can be me just messing around in 3D, because a lot of the time as well, I don't give myself a brief and I don't sketch when it's personal work. I just like to sit and look at the screen and go, all right, what am I going to do today? Let's ask the muse, what am I going to get today? Let's bring it down from the cosmos,
I love
and
that.
let's just see what happens. And I'll start pushing shapes around. I mean, maybe I think I was talking to Aaron on his last podcast, and he says, "Oh, that's how you sketch." And it was the first time someone has said that to me, and I was like, "Well, maybe that's what it is," because I sketch in sort of 3D space rather than the 2D space, because you know I've been around for quite a few years now. I know I look very youthful and handsome and so forth, but you know, when I was 14, 15, I was airbrushing and sketching and painting every single day. You know, and I was doing that. I've been doing, artwork as a job from the games industry from the mid 90s. So it's quite a time. And so for me, as I've progressed, I find that sketching in a book is not enough for me. I like to be able to see the whole object in 3D space. That's my kind of go-to thing, is what I like to be able to do. And so when I'm sketching and I'm just messing around, and I'm messing around pulling bits of shapes, or I've got a spaceship and I'll sort of deconstruct it and rebuild it and do things to it, that's my sort of form of sketching. And so it could be something as simple as that, of me just messing around, or me just starting off with a shape that I think, you know what, that might be quite interesting to do a shape like that, and let's see what I can get out of it. And then, other times it can just be as simple as, I'll be, again, I'm working, I'm doing stuff in work, and I'm thinking, this idea will pop into my head and go, you know what, I actually like that sort of light that I've done there with them textures and that sort of form, and I think I'm going to do something like that. Not completely rip off what I've been doing in work, but you take those ideas and those forms and you mold it into what you do, what you're almost like what your comfort zone is, and then you just start producing. And then I find that often, when I'm doing stuff, I can get 3 or 4 different images out of, like, say, one session, and I'll go, well, I'm not happy with that, but that might work if I did this. So that goes off into the folder of, next ideas or whatever. And then there's a library. Then there's that constant library, and then they start to formulate, and I'll start building them up. I mean, I did one the other day, which I was going back to sort of Game of Thrones stuff, and I spent about 2 hours or so just doing sort of a matte painting for the background. And then I was like, well, what the hell am I going to put in this that's gonna bring this to life? I still haven't thought about it yet. So it's in the library. It's just sitting there. And maybe 3 months' time, I'll open that up and go, what I'm doing now, messing around in 3D, that will fit in there. Or I could be watching something on the TV and go, that's it. That's what I need to do. It needs to be that. It could be simple as simple. I tell you, one thing that I do is I will put my stuff onto different TV screens around the house.
Oh wow.
So like, if you've got an Amazon Fire Stick, you can get this. There's a little app that comes with it, which is for your photos. So you can just put your family photos on it, and it will go through. But I find I put stuff up straight away when I've done stuff, or I'm halfway through stuff. I'll put that up, because the difference between seeing your work on a monitor to seeing it on a 50-inch TV, or I'll put it on a smaller TV that's got a slightly different picture to it. And straight away, it's like looking at someone else's work. It's like the old analogy of, we flip our images.
Yes.
But doing something like that, straight away, you pick up the problems of that image and you go, actually, no, I don't need to do that. I need to do something like this. So again, it's all these little triggers that will affect my brain to kick me into doing different things and different process.
It's amazing. I don't even have to ask the question now of, like, how do you, get away from the fear of the blank canvas, because you just gave so many good points. Like, that's a great tip too. I'm going to definitely try that, because that does sound like a really good way of just getting almost like a fresh set of eyes on your work. Because like you said, even when you put something on a different screen, like, the colors look different. Like,
the color space is completely different.
Yeah. And also, I think, look, everybody works differently. But if somebody is stuck with, they want to create and they've hit a brick wall, got big time creative block, what you just mentioned earlier too, I think is 2 great tips. Like, you may work on several different things, but don't be afraid to just jump into 3D and like start pushing around shapes. It's almost like looking at, as a kid looking at the clouds and pretending what
Yeah.
you can see, like, playing with clay or like starting to mold shapes. Like, I think that is just a great way to try and break that mental block. And don't be afraid to like just test different mediums, because you don't know what medium is going to get you, a fresh idea that you just haven't thought about before.
Yeah. I think as
Um,
well, like you said before, don't be afraid to stop. Don't be afraid to just go, enough's enough. I'm going to park that. I'll try something else.
yeah, and that's what I realized I should have done, like on well, so many times, but most recently as well. Like I didn't realize that all I needed to do was just park that project and just start
Yeah.
something fresh. You
Because
can't,
that as well, that happens in work. Sometimes you can be so invested on an image and then you go, this is just not working. And then you go, you know what? I've got to start again.
yeah,
I've got to do a clean slate.
yeah,
And it's having that again. It's having that discipline. It's having that experience and confidence to be able to do that. To say, no, 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 this isn't going to work. There's no good me smashing this for the next 2 days, and I know it's not going to be at the standard that I want it to be. So let's just draw a line under it.
yeah. I couldn't have said that any better. Like I'm glad that we're even just having this chat so that I can take a lot of these lessons for myself, quite honestly. So a lot of people that listen to this, might be earlier in their journey. What, and it's a loaded question, but the reality is like we are living in more grim times, like you said, like it's very competitive. There's AI flooding everything. People are losing faith or losing hope or quitting art. But what advice could you give to people that are early in their journey or starting in their journey into building a folio, or to just not giving up? Like what advice could you give these people that want to make, at the
Yeah,
end of the day, they will want to make this their career?
yeah, and it is tough. It is tough, and I don't. I say this to people. I don't sugarcoat it at all. It's tough. It's stressful. You just have to keep. You just have to keep going. If you love it enough, I believe anyway. If you love it enough, you will make it. It's just having that determination. Whether it's as difficult as it was 10 years ago, I don't know, because the analogy is that 10, 15 years ago, the work really wasn't around for concept artists, so it was difficult to actually get anywhere. Whereas today, it's difficult because the work is pretty thin on the ground. And also, we've got, in some respects, although I'm not seeing too much of it, we've got AI sort of jumping in and muddying the water. I think a lot of it is down to studios not doing as much production as it used to do. So I just think it's important that people just, if they love it, just keep creating. Even if you have to get another, job. You have to get another job. But just keep doing it and keep doing what you love, because I think it's a shame sometimes when people just go, "Oh, I'm not going to bother anymore. I'm just going to pack it in," and I often think that's quite a shame. And I've seen people, people who have done that when they've been fairly established and they've gone, "That's it. I'm out the industry," and I always think that's kind of a shame, because we're losing those people. So yeah, I mean, just don't give up. Don't give up. It is incredibly difficult out there, but there are more tools and there are more ways than ever before to get you seen, get you noticed, and you to become, you know, keep being original. Keep away from the trends. Keep being original. You do, and the other important thing as well is do what you want to do. Do what you want to do. My wife always used to say to me, "Why do you keep doing stupid bloody spaceships all the time?" And I'm like, "Because I love them." And she's like, "Well, you're not going to get, anywhere, and Now I just go past and go, see? But it's true. You do something that you love, and you keep doing it, and you get better and better and better, and you start expanding. And then it makes it easier for you to create because it's something that you like doing. So if you like doing fantasy art, keep doing fantasy art. You know, hopefully one day something will happen. But you've just got to keep that persistence going, and hammering around, and getting to know people in the community. That's another important thing as well. Chatting to people, going to things like 101 or stuff like that is really important. Yeah.
Oh man, I can't wait to clip parts of that off because like I think it's just really inspiring to hear. And I think you said at the start of it, like if you love it, you will make it, and that is the most important thing I think that we all need in our life right now to hear, because that'll take you a long way. And yeah, at the end of the day, like you said, there's no shame in working another job, because before we were doing this as a job, we were doing other jobs anyway, but we were still creating. Yeah. And look, Cole, I think that is like the perfect way to wrap up this topic. Like there is so much gold in there from people to extract, and so much inspiration and motivation. But before I let you go, just want to ask you, like, is there anything that people can expect from you this year, or anything to look forward to in 2026?
Oh God, I finished Sonic the other day, which was an absolute joy. Can't thank Jeff and Luke enough. They were just really. I mean, Jeff is the director, and Luke's the production designer. They were just absolutely joyous to work with. It really was. It's been a long time, and I said this to them on Friday. It's been a long time since I've had so much fun, and it was just so nice to get feedback that was positive and proper feedback. Sketches, it was just really lovely, and so that'll be coming out, but I think that's a long way off. I think that's 27, maybe that's coming out. Then there's that lovely Chinese film that we did, yes, which is hopefully will come out over here, which should be quite interesting. And then I've got a few other things lined up, which I'm not going to talk about just yet. Yeah, but let's just see. I'm hoping things are gonna pick up a bit.
Oh man, it's so good to hear just like positive stories and positive experiences. And yes, people that are listening, for the Chinese film that we worked on, Cole did some incredible spaceship design work for that film. So you're going to be in for a treat. But once again, Cole, thank you so much, man. Like, you've dropped so much valuable knowledge here, and I just really appreciate your time, man. It's just always so good having a chat.
Cheers, man. Always
Thanks.
Good. Always good.
I'll put all your links and some of your work in a nice little article that will sit with this. So all the best, mate. Thanks again.
Cheers, mate.